And we're live.
Okay,
Hello,
are you
everybody.
counting us down? Are
Oh,
you
yeah,
counting
yeah.
us down?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're live. And we're live.
All right.
Man,
All right,
remember
we're
when we
live.
recorded those 99 episodes for the lost season?
Our
And
intro
we
was so
nailed the
tight.
intro. Yeah.
Yeah. With the VR thing
Well,
and like 3D intro and you and I, they were running and then they explode. You know what? I'm not even going to get into it because I deleted the file by accident, you know.
yeah, I mean, that's okay. It's all right. I mean, I was hoping for that VHS release, but, things
Yeah,
happen.
oh yeah.
Things happen, man.
Yeah. Hey everyone. How's everyone doing today? Welcome to another episode of Livebrush. My name is Ray Bonilla, and I'm
And
joined with my good friend, but mostly enemy. Well, you'll see. You'll have to figure out what it is we are. I am to him, and he is to me. Tyler Jacobson.
thank you. Thank you for the introduction. It is an ever evolving relationship, Sometimes
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
enemies, sometimes we're not. Today, I don't know, I think we're in between. I think we're a little in between.
Today we're just trying to figure it out, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
So,
know,
okay, so we're back. This is episode 2 of season,
three.
well, we'll call it 3, but it could technically be season 4 if there was a lost season.
I
But
mean, yeah, we're getting into there. Yeah,
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But
probably season 7 then, if that's
yeah, I mean, season 100, really going 100 seasons
good.
and a movie. So I'm back on old Orky face, and I'm sculpting again today. I might get into painting. Ray had this good idea that I can take this to a certain level and then bring it over into another program, maybe Nomad, because I know how to do the lights in Nomad, and light it up and then use it as a reference to do a painting. So that may happen, but we'll see. I don't want to promise too far ahead.
Yeah.
What are you working on, man?
I'm still working on my underpainting here for this study. I'm gonna try and lay the whole thing in the next few hours because I shouldn't be taking this long on this underpainting for something that's just a study. But I want to set all my values up because they're really subtle, and I know the colors are going to be subtle as a result. So that's what I'm going to try and do. So we'll see how far I get. I am historically slow, especially when I get to talking. So I probably won't get anything done past like a 0.0003 inch by 0.003 inch section of the painting. So knowing me, but yeah, still doing this in acrylics. I will be taking this to full color, so you'll see that. Um, and yeah, just having fun.
Excellent, man. It's looking great, so keep at it.
Dude, yeah. I have to see yours. I got to pull up the stream, but I don't want to touch anything. So Tyler and I have been having some technical issues.
Yeah, it's a perfectly fine tuned machine right now, and if we move
Yeah,
one
yeah.
dial, oh,
It's
disaster.
just yeah, calamity, complete calamity. Oh god. So can I tell them about the computers?
Oh yeah, of course.
So Tyler and I, decided. Well, we were both due for upgrades in our computers, and
Yeah,
so we both decided to get some nice computers for ourselves because both of us are trying to do bigger more complicated projects, getting into 3D and things like that. So we felt that we needed computers to um, that would allow us to do that without holding us back. And so we got them. We both got the same exact computer. And go figure, we decided to do this during a chip shortage. So that's because that's a smart thing to do.
that was kind of our biggest
And
hurdle because there's
yeah,
people out there using chips to do stuff
yeah,
other than what we're trying to do. So it was like hard to get a hold of these things because they're,
yeah,
anyways, we ended up getting ourselves the same machine with the same, what we got, 3090s in our
yeah,
machines.
yep. And 5900Xs because it was a pre-built. And otherwise, we would have built. If we could find the stuff, we would have built it ourselves. But yeah, they're great computers. But they have like a couple of weird driver quirks, and it's like if you turn this on, you turn that on, you get static, and it was just driving us crazy. So yeah, it was just funny because like there's certain things that without getting I'm trying to say like how do I say this without getting into too many details because it bore everyone, uh so
Tell them all the things you turned on and all the things you turned off
yeah, so
in
like okay,
order.
so I get all right, all you need to show, long story short, we have I get static from my mic uh on Tyler's side, not on my side, when I have HDR on my monitor, my 4K monitor, because I have two monitors I'm running with, turned
Oh yeah,
off.
dude. This
But
is boring. This is terrible radio.
I know this totally is. So when I turn it on, there's no problem. Everything runs super fine. So you would think the most, graphically taxing, like the more graphically taxing setting would produce the weird results, but it's actually the complete opposite. So I don't know. So I haven't had a
Everything.
Windows machine in a while, so
Yeah.
I,
You're gonna blame it on Windows. I knew this was gonna come up. At some point in this story, you were gonna blame it on Windows. I knew it.
Wait, so you I mean this is Twitch, so I mean we get into tech a little bit. Did you upgrade to Windows 11?
I haven't yet.
Okay, I haven't. I haven't.
I
So
always kind of take my time on that, just because I don't know. I don't know what's about to happen. I don't want a whole new.
yeah.
I hate. You know, we're gonna if we're gonna complain about. Oh, sorry. 1 second, chat. Yeah, Kate's not with us today. She's got some work stuff, but hopefully she can pop in later. But we'll see. We'll see. Um, but when you have a workflow and you have to like change it all of a sudden, I don't know, man. It's like when when Windows, not when Windows, but when like Photoshop adds a new thing. Well, it just totally screws up my workflow, and I spend a few days trying to figure out the new thing that they moved or whatever. So I don't know. I usually
Yeah.
take a while and let it's like never be a first gen adopter kind
Well,
of thing.
yeah, we got some like good advice here in the chat.
Oh, great, great. I think I see it, but
Denman
why don't you read it out?
Denman Rook Denman Rook the Denman Rook Captain Denman Rook
El
said
Capitan.
that El Capitan said, "I'm always scared it's going to f everything up." And
Yeah.
so, yes, I agree.
F in the
That's
chat.
my fear too.
You know what I
F
mean?
in the chat. But then, uh, I, Agovezi said, "Windows 11 is a pass. Watch for the odd add Windows." Okay, that's good. But I think so. That's great advice. I'm going to keep that. But I think Saucefire says the most important thing is F's in the chat to blame Tyler. I think that is the key.
Thanks, Saucefire.
I think
Appreciate it.
this is the I think that's what we all sort of concluded on. The chat concluded sort of landed on that conclusion a lot quicker than I did. And
That was
that's
quick. And honestly,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to go with the chat on this one because I just sat here while Ray figured stuff out. I'm like, I got OBS up, it's doing stuff, and all I can say is it's crackly or it's the frame rate. But
Yeah.
I'm not moving any dials. I'm basically doing nothing. I'm just doing nothing.
See, Fat Baron says, "Wait for the 0.1 update." Fat Baron, I'm like I've owned Apple computers for a while, so you can call me an Apple sheep. I really like their products and whatnot. So when it comes to updating the operating systems, I'm usually pretty quick to it. But the last desktop ones I've been kind of like hesitant on, and it's good to see. I don't know like that range for Windows, like how far can I push it before stuff starts to not work anymore. But it seems like I can push it pretty far.
Yeah, because it's the industry standard, in Windows, so you can push it real far. You know what I mean?
You know what? There's no reason to be PC Master Race. I spent the money on the computer. Okay, we had the same computer. So when you're insulting me, you're insulting yourself.
That's true. That's true. And we don't need to.
Yeah.
This is like a tale as old as time kind of argument.
Well, Agabazi says Windows 98 has pinballs. So wait, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Oh,
Windows 10
full
doesn't have
tilt.
pinball?
Oh man, did they remove pinball? I was just living in a world where I always knew pinball was going to be there, just like alongside Minesweeper.
It
And
was the one thing
if
that
they
I was
remove
like,
that, what's the point?
well, it was the one thing that I was it was on my to-do list that I haven't gotten to yet.
Was to play pinball.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty good in its
Yeah.
day. I'm
Well,
not
no,
gonna.
because pinball, free pinball that was built into the computer.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the one I'm talking about. We used to have tournaments. Okay, so the chat's watching me just scroll over because I haven't hotkeyed any of my. I haven't hotkeyed any of the brushes I want to use in ZBrush, so I'm just like, where is
I
it?
mean, see,
And guess what? It's in alphabetical order. So there's that.
we're bringing it. We're bringing it in season 3. I'm just letting you know, and it's so clear.
We spent all of our good stuff in the last season. The lost season.
I know. You know, I was thinking about this, like that we had to get rid of all the lost, quote unquote, lost season because like we didn't realize that we had copyrighted material and
Yeah,
right.
yeah, we're always talking about
It's
movies.
like
We were just playing the movies, which you
yeah,
can't do. Can't do that.
movie watch movie watch parties. You know, it is just streams of the movie. Oh god.
But that stream where
Have you watched it?
have I watched
Go ahead.
anything lately? I was gonna
Yeah, have you
say,
watched it?
um, this is actually exactly what I was gonna propose is that we talk about things that we've kind of watched lately that we thought were pretty good. What I had seen, it's on Netflix, I think still. It's called Prospect.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if anyone in the chat's seen this. It's very cool. It's this like, it's got that quality like of set design and weapon design that Alien had. You know, where everything looks detailed enough and has enough fidelity and like grit that it looks like it really belongs in a universe where space travel has been going on for a really long time.
I thought you were going to say that it looked like it was a repurposed Transformers toys.
That too. It's got a little of that, which is a really good thing to have. Something that a lot of sci-fi is missing.
Do they know? Do they know that story behind Alien?
No, I don't know. Which story are you talking about?
So they like at the end of Alien, when they're doing like the big spoilers. I mean, for those who haven't seen it, it's been a while since the movie's out. So I don't
Since
feel,
Alien came out
too
in like
bad.
'78.
Yeah. So there's a scene, you know, when they're in the dock and it's raining. It's at the end, and apparently the visual effects ran out of money to build the set, so they took all these Transformers or these sort of Macross or I forgot all these like toys and just spliced them up and spray fixed them,
Oh yeah.
spray painted them, and that's how they built that set. You know,
That old the original kit bash.
yeah, the original kit bashing.
I got a question. Hey, Fat Baron. Fat Baron's asking which version of ZBrush I'm using. I'm using the latest one. I'm on the subscription now, so it's like always having me update. So I'm in like 2002.0.3. But I do want to look into sculpting in Blender for sure.
You know, it's probably not nearly as feature rich as ZBrush. I'm almost without knowing much about Blender. I'm pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah, I mean you're probably right. I don't know enough. I'm only just getting into the world of like 3D tools. I've resisted it for a long time. I don't know why, but I love sculpting. So
I'm a little busy learning how to.
Yeah.
You know, when you're learning how to draw and paint, it just takes all of your, and just get good enough to start getting work. It takes a long time.
Yeah, it's like putting
speed.
all your in D&D terms, it's like putting all your roles into one attribute.
Yeah. Oh, when was the last time? Yeah, software as a service is a trap. When's the last time Ray's Campus asked him to update? Agabazi said, "Yeah, that is true."
I don't know. You had a canvas update recently when you went to the artifacts surfaces. So
oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Analog update.
It was like just thinking like, yep, well, you know, it's state of the art. I mean, what this is state of the art vis-a-vis 1960s right here, because I'm using acrylics. But I was gonna say if I was using oils, I would have been like, this state of the 14th century state of the art, baby.
Yeah,
You
actually,
know?
that's a good. That leads me to a good. You would know this. When do you know when acrylic as a painting medium was created?
I think it's in the 50s. They realized that they could. It was like a medium that they artists could add to. It's just acrylic polymer that they could add to gouache to make it uh, basically water resistant, so that
Oh,
it
okay.
go
So
right
it
on
was like
top.
gouache beforehand then.
Yeah, well, I think they were mixing it too. They were adding it to paint because the only thing they had was like casein, and
That's
the
right.
closest thing to it was also anybody in animation there probably heard of cell vinyl. It was a vinyl
Yeah,
paint.
I love
You
that.
can still get it. It's very matte. Um, totally still get it these days. And that's what they would use for like painting cells and
That
also
stuff's
doing
pretty damn
backgrounds. They
cool.
realized, yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it, but I've never actually tried it. But
Yeah,
I
I've
know
never
painters
used
that
it.
have done some incredible stuff uh, doing that. Yeah. So that's from what I've and without actually really really researching it. That's the earliest I can find artists using this in the '60s, and it was to add to things.
Well, it's a
But
lifesaver. I recently did a whole. I think we've talked about this on the show. I recently did a whole painting in acrylic instead of oil, and it's so much more analogous to my digital painting process that, man, it might become like the way I paint paintings. Most of my paintings.
it's good stuff, man. I mean, I think it's got so many advantages. I mean, I really like it. I've done full paintings in it, and you and I have talked about it, and it's you use it for what it's really good at, and that's like it's fast drying. I can layer things really quickly, and um, yeah, it's really akin to, I think gouache and acrylic are one of the closest things to digital that you can kind of get, uh, and maybe like, I mean, yeah, I would say gouache and acrylic, just because like you have to learn how to throw down a shape, and it's pretty hard edged. It just sort of
Right,
stays
right.
there.
Not a lot of fit. Like
Um,
unless you've thinned it out, you're kind of just getting it. Like you can't blend the
yeah,
edges or anything.
exactly. Which is what I like about just that type of painting, um, and because it just I think that's the stuff that's the way we were kind of taught how to paint, even in with oils. In grad school, it was just putting down a shape, leaving it alone, and then moving on to the next shape.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so yeah,
Trying to
so
build
it's
from
it's
there.
just yeah, and build from there. Yeah, and there's so many other different ways. Obviously, if you've seen some of the VODs, you've seen like multiple ways of how we've approached things and whatnot. But it's a really nice, solid way of learning how to control paint, because it's such a weird. It takes a while. It's a weird sensation, sort of holding this instrument. It's long. It's unlike anything that you've ever really used. Um, and so it's not like a pencil, whereas like the stylus, at least with the any sort of computer stylus, Apple Pencil, Wacom's, Wacom or Wacom stylus, it's all around the size of a pencil,
Yeah,
and
and
that's
that's how
pretty
you've been
familiar.
trained your whole life is to write with a
Yeah, to
pencil,
write,
not with a brush.
right, right, and use the point and all that stuff, and like that just doesn't work with the brush, or when you're learning how to like draw large and like 18 by 24, and so you taught how to use your whole arm, and it's just a whole different thing. Like you can't take the experiences they're not that you've had in learning how to write and whatnot, and necessarily translate them to all methods of drawing and painting.
Yeah, you got to retrain your
um,
hand basically.
yeah,
Okay,
and that's
we got a
frustrating.
ding ding here. I don't mean to interrupt you, man, but we got
Oh
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fairly good question in the chat. I think this is a good one, a great one for us to answer because we've both done multiple figure scenes. So from Nick DeLuca, we have, so if you're working on an illustration with multiple characters next to each other, how do you handle their silhouettes so they don't get muddled?
Oh
I
man,
have a bunch of
yeah, great
solutions for
question.
this that I think are there's some really cool approaches. There's no one answer. Every artist is going to have a different approach, but I've got a couple. But do you want to go first, Ray, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, mine's pretty short. I mean, everything for me starts with the thumbnail, and I take like almost like the how to draw Marvel, how to draw comics the Marvel way approach to it, where everything's based off of like a gesture, sort of shape that goes through the entire composition. It flows in and out, so that allows it to be sort of allow the eye to travel around it, over and over and over again, experience things over and over and over again, and um, and I do that, really in thumbnails, and I'll work with my thumbnail until it works, or into these small shapes, uh, and then usually you can. I like to use, and some other artists don't do this, but um, I like to use my light source to kind of dictate the light and shadow shapes to kind of dictate and help support that design. So um, that's what I do. And
Yeah,
it
it's
just
like
comes
it's
from
a
me.
matter of planning, right? So that it reads right. You got to
Yeah,
plan.
yeah.
And
Because you
I
got to
have
think of like, sorry,
no, go ahead,
one
go
thing I
ahead.
was going to say is you got to think of like the figures. They're not. It's more like a still life painting rather than a figure painting, if that makes any sense. Whereas like not every figure has to be this full on. It's not going to be like a full on isolated figure. They're going to have ones that are more emphasized than others. So it's not like you can. So you have to have a lot of variety to that extent. So yeah, that's sort of my idea on it.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. And I have a couple approaches too that I go with. Um, Number one way you can address this, Nick DeLuca, is atmosphere. So if you have a whole bunch of characters, the ones that are behind, you can push a little atmosphere between the two, so you can lighten their shadows just a little bit. Sometimes you can cheat it with like dust or smoke, so where the character that's directly behind maybe the main character, you can have just a little bit where their shadows meet each other. You can have just a little bit of dust or smoke or something to make the shadows just in that area push back a little bit. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is going with Ray's approach, and that's the planning. Really plan out the value pattern. So if you've got reference of a whole bunch of characters, like say you photographed a whole bunch of people, but they all kind of have similar outfits, you can change the colors, maybe like, or just the values. Maybe a shirt's lighter here or darker here. I thought I turned the screensaver thing off. Um, so you can make it so it's lighter here or darker there, so that the characters get separated by the values. Let's say another approach. This is one that I use all the time, and I want to say I got this from Todd Lockwood, but I think I got it from Todd Lockwood through my friend Kieran Yanner. And this is it's this sfumato thing that we talked about in season one. I think it's blurring the edge. So if there's a figure in front that has like a sharp edge to their coat or something, the character behind, wherever the lines of that character go underneath the character that's in front of them, I blur the edge a little bit so that all the edges that meet the main character are blurred when they're behind, and it gives just this subtle pushback. It pushes that character back in space just a little bit. It's something to try. So if you have multiple figures, try messing around with blurring that edge just a little bit on the ones that are behind the main figure, and it gives a really cool little effect.
Hey Tyler, we just got two things that happened. First,
Okay, what
we
happened?
just got we just got rated with a party of four from the David Peterson, the God
David,
Prevail. What's up, everyone?
what's
David,
up,
you're a
everyone?
beast, man.
You are a beast, my friend.
Awesome.
You're the best.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is great. I love it. And the chat's all blowing up and everything. And I'm thinking, yeah, Tyler and I are just killing it with our answers, and everybody's into it. And then all of a sudden, I see just multiple F's in the chat. I'm thinking everyone's agreeing with us. Instead, the chat is actually celebrating the return of Kate Welch in the chat. So Kate
Oh,
Welch has invaded. We've been rated with a party of Kate.
Great. So we were
So
thinking we are amazing here. We are killing it. Everyone in the chat's really happy, but in reality, they're just really
it's just
happy
David
that Kate's back
and
and not
David and David rated
and David
40.
rated us.
So,
So this is we're going to change the name of this to the Kate Welch David Peterson chat hour.
experience project.
Yeah. So well, thank you everybody, and
Thank
the
you.
amazing Kate Welch. Thank you for joining us in the chat. You're amazing.
I mean, Tyler said
Awkward silence.
I said
everybody.
you were amazing.
I did see a question back there from I always get this one, Lord Adornable.
Or nope.
I can't. They're asking what painting I did in acrylic. Unfortunately, it's still under NDA, so I can't discuss it. But I will once it's out. I'll bring it up on Livebrush, and we can chat about what process, what things I did. But I mean, actually, I can chat about what things I did without talking about the painting. But we can get into that later. But it involved an airbrush, and I had a lot of fun.
Oh, brother. No one wants it. Airbrush.
They do.
What?
They do. I wasn't using airbrush either, like you normally do. And I wasn't doing it like Jesper Icing does it, which is to just have water in it.
We're horrible airbrush artists, by the way. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not like
We don't do anything.
don't give me your T-shirts, man, because I won't do anything good with them.
We're no John Mattos over here, that's for sure. John Mattos, if you guys don't know in the chat, was and is he uses Illustrator now, but in the 80s and late 70s, he used purely airbrush and he did the Rocketeer poster in the 90s with
John
airbrush. Yeah, that was John. The one that's like crazy deco and all the airbrush gradients.
Oh yeah,
that was him. He did the Indiana Jones logo gradient.
Yeah,
so John Mattos, amazing fellow, lives in San Francisco, really nice guy.
One heck of a beard. Does he still have his beard?
I think so. Last time I saw him, he was. He reminds me of like the Christmas Carol with George C. Scott. See, now we're talking about movies, chat. How about that? Christmas Carol with George C. Scott, the classic Christmas Carol movie. The ghost of what's the big huge ghost with a beard and he's like got the green cloak.
Christmas present.
Yeah, present. That's what John Mattos reminds me of. Like just this huge booming guy.
I was gonna say John Mattos like reminds me like John Mattos is like if Orson Welles became an illustrator instead of a filmmaker.
Yeah, that too. That's a good.
Does he have an Orson Welles beard? Right.
He did for a long time. So I used to meet up with him in San Francisco, and we'd go to a little, the best Chinese food restaurants in Chinatown, San Francisco, are the ones that they don't even have signs. And we used to go to this little one that didn't have a sign, and we would sit in there and just chat about art for a little bit. I only met up with him a few times, but he's a great dude.
Mattos.
This is after Ray left San Francisco. So
yeah, I was going to say.
Otherwise, I would have had him join. Otherwise, I'd had him join.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
I don't know if we've talked about this in the chat, but Big Trouble in Little China takes place in San Francisco. So everyone in the chat, there's some more movie talk for you.
Was that like a San Francisco factoid? That
yeah.
How'd you get there? Oh, through Chinatown.
Yeah.
Okay. So
connect the dots. Connect the dots.
Okay,
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
K Welch in the chat. That is it. That's the only movie talk we're doing. I'm trying to keep an eye and make sure that we got now that we've been rated by a bunch of folks, we want to keep the good content coming. And
if David's still here, I'm sure he's saying like, did I miss something? Did I miss a transition? No, Tyler went from because he ate in Chinatown with John Mattos, and John Mattos did a bunch of 80s movie poster, 90s movie poster stuff.
Yeah.
And Big Trouble in Little China takes place in San Francisco.
In the 80s. And in the
80s. Tyler, therefore, was in Big Trouble in Little China.
And in a lot of ways, I've walked down similar streets, therefore
my
It's like
God.
6 degrees of being in Big Trouble in Little China.
600 degrees.
Yeah, there we go. Good sauce fire. I'm with this. Lord of the Rings takes place in Middle Earth. Done. Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
So
Yeah, that is
I think
true. That's fire, yeah.
to go segue back into art stuff. I think I want to. I'm just like really detailing this guy's face, which I shouldn't be doing because just like with a sketch, you shouldn't go into the details. But I'm really having fun with it. But what I think I'm going to do is make this like a bust. I think I'll put some head and shoulders in on this guy, and then I think I don't really know how to do it too well in ZBrush, but I can create layers, and I want to make like scars and stuff on his face and give him some asymmetry because faces are never like perfectly symmetrical. So I'm going to mess around with that as we go forward, probably over the next few live brushes.
Do you start off painting with symmetry on?
Yeah, I always do to block in everything, but something I've always been too afraid of is to get to a point where I now got to turn the symmetry off and make it asymmetrical, and then I can't go back. Once it's asymmetrical, you can't go back.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
am planning to question in the chat from Kate Welch. Are you planning to take it all the way to texturing too? I think so. I think I'm going to keep, because I've never really done that. I've never done like the pores and the textures. I got to make sure I have the right amount of subdivisions or whatever. See, this is how little I know about 3D, everybody. So you guys all get to watch me stumble through this. It's going to be great.
Oh my God. I've seen you in OBS, my friend.
Ray's over here wielding
I can't wait.
paint like a
I can't
master,
wait.
and I'm going to be like, oh, God, I ruined my whole file.
Well,
Something like that.
give me a couple of weeks and I will be there with you in Blender
Yes.
saying
Here we
like,
go.
okay, I clicked the thing. Where did my menu go?
Yeah. Well, in ZBrush, if you're trying to find menus, good luck. And that's it. That's all I gotta say.
Do a version to save before you go asymmetrical.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Said.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm definitely gonna do that.
That's good advice, but Tyler doesn't tend to follow that. So
I haven't figured out how to save yet. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I'm joking. I've figured out how to save. I can do that.
Oh my God.
A little tooth. What's a little tooth? Kate's asking me in the chat if I can give him a little tooth. Oh, a little tooth. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, I'm gonna put some teeths in there actually. But I'll probably put. Yeah, I mean that's where we're gonna have to go into asymmetry here because I'm gonna have to. I want the teeth to be asymmetrical, so he's all gnarly. Well, we'll keep messing with it. I think I want to play around in symmetry for a bit until I start doing all the funky stuff.
I mean, I can't wait to get back into digital sculpting. I don't know how. Yeah, I will make time for it on the stream. I'm going to use Livebrush obviously as the excuse for it for sure. But it's great. With the thing about 3D, and this is for me personally. The way I create stuff is I generate as much reference as absolutely possible, and I just go spend hours on just trying to find. I'm like a location scout, trying to find the exact tree for something, or the exact light. And with 3D, you could just create all of it yourself. It takes a little bit longer, obviously, than finding a photo, but you get so much more freedom to move the camera around and just find more possibilities. And I find that super exciting. And I think it's probably going to be, especially when it becomes more and more easier to use, which it's getting there. It's going to be a tool that many visual artists are going to be using to generate reference.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I think Ray and I have talked about this a million times. We're really trying to dig into more to use more of the tools at our disposal.
David Peterson has a says, and Ray, your sculpture looks very flat, more like a painting. Thank you, David. I'm still learning. I think it's I think I'm still in. I'm not in. I'm in a front view. I think so. I'm not in isometric view or anything like that.
It's
So
an
I think.
illusion of 3 dimensions. We used to have. Oh well, we don't have the sound effect board anymore. But Bill Mon. That was like a
Oh yeah,
dying
yeah,
wolf.
yeah.
Anyways, Bill. There it
Noise
is.
cancel.
Bill Mon used to always, he would be painting something in 3D and he'd be like, see, I'm turning the light here and I'm adding this highlight so that it looks like 3D because illustration is an illusion. And then he would, I think that was his joke, right? I don't know. He used to make a lot of jokes.
We a lot of times you didn't know.
Yeah, a lot of times.
He
A lot
was.
of times he had no idea.
He had no idea. Eventually he knew. Yeah. No, it was. It says that he would always say, "Well, our goal as visual artists, in that class, it was a head drawing class, was to create the illusion of 3 dimensions on a 2 dimensional surface. That was like his big thing. And as visual artists, we have to visually communicate that. And if there's sort of rules that you have to follow in order to make that illusion, occur. Just think of it like a magic trick, exactly like that. And if there's any lapse in those, um, in how you execute those rules or those principles, the paper, the illusion is broken, and basically the paper goes back to becoming a flat piece of paper instead of a 3 dimensional space, which is where you get flatness in a drawing. So it's a really crazy way of thinking about it. I mean,
Yeah, it's
before I
this.
took the Bill's class, didn't you think like I was like, I don't know about you, but I was like, oh, but you just sort of you draw it really well, and then it looks like what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, and
You know?
he said that I had the same sort of thing. Like you just make it the thing, but he had this like along with what Ray just said. He also said this it's a dialogue. Every inch of the painting is a dialogue with the viewer. And the second you like break that dialogue and start like speaking a different language, you lose the communication with the viewer. So,
Right.
if you're doing, and we were being trained to paint very realistically. We weren't being trained to paint stylistically. The way we were being trained was to paint, like the masters did in the 1800s and stuff. So we
Toga's never.
that dialogue was realism. So the dialogue we were having with the viewer was, this is how objects look in reality. So we have to maintain that consistency throughout the painting. And the second we break that dialogue, we lose the conversation essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's very zen and foreign when you talk about it like that, but it's really a lot of understanding drawing, which is like the fundamental uh, means of visually communicating something. It's really a lot of it is it's a conceptual thing as much as it is it's a marriage between understanding a principle conceptually and understanding it so well that you're able to communicate that using your hands instead of your voice. And so that's uh that's that extra step,
Yeah, yeah,
because
for sure.
you can understand value, you can understand the concept of proportion, but in order to fully understand as a visual artist, you have to be able to visually communicate that. And the only way to do that is with your hands and your medium.
Yeah, I mean, the result is all that reference that Ray was talking about kneading. You got to learn how forms are made, how they why forms are. It's like I think something we were talking about with Thomas Blackshear was learning how to see. It's like important to learn how to
Yeah.
see
Thomas
if you're trying
Blackshear
to work
the second.
realistically.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. Thomas Blackshear the second. Blackshhear. One word. Just first name Thomas. If you just type that in Instagram, get ready.
Yeah, you're gonna see one
Uh,
of the greatest artists of our age.
I think so.
Truly one of my favorite artists, and he's a wonderful guy too. He's really great to chat
My
with.
favorite first. It's my
No,
favorite first.
no, no. Well, yeah, it's true. It's true.
I don't know if that's true, Tyler. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know how we came across this work. I
You
I
well,
was
I know how because you in art school knew every artist that there ever was in the history of art, and I knew like two, like I knew like two artists.
yourself and me, and that
Yeah,
was the only artist you needed to
yeah,
know.
either of us.
Most
I
of
knew
me.
them.
K Webb said he told me he liked my dress one time. I treasure this memory.
Oh yeah,
See,
when we were at the Norman Rockwell Museum hanging out with Mr.
now,
Blackshear.
now why were you at there, Tyler? Because the people don't know.
Oh yeah, well we didn't do any Livebrush during that, and I don't know if we advertised it anywhere. But I had that.
We did a stream live from the Norman Rockwell Museum
Oh yeah, oh that's right.
for the
For
lost
the lost
season.
season.
Yeah.
That was good. That was actually really good. Well, you guys missed it, but because the live it didn't go out live. But I had some work in. They did a fantasy show at the Rockwell Museum, and I had a couple pieces in there. One was my red dragon from D&D. It was. I mean, it was like a. It's on the DM screen, but I
All right. Well,
initially whatever.
let me set this up. Let me set this up because you said like some people say you said the Rockwell as if it was like across the street from everyone's, like Frank's Hot Dogs or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, it is
The
not. It is
Norman
kind of out
Rockwell
in the middle of
Museum,
nowhere.
the Norman Rockwell Museum uh, is named after Norman Rockwell, one of the great American illustrators, you know, in history, and one of the most important American artists, and I think in the last, easily the last century. Uh, it's in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. They essentially built a museum to house his work, but then it's since become a institution, one of the most famous, well-known institutions for American illustration. And they have exhibitions on great illustrators of the past and present. And this time around, they actually had done a fantasy art, right? What was it called? Masters of Fantasy Art or something like that?
And they called it Enchanted, and it was sort of like
Enchanted.
yeah, it was a small. I wouldn't say it was small. It actually took up about half the museum, but it was a collection of fantasy artists. Some alive, some not. I think the majority of them were alive, but they had some. They had some NC Wyeth stuff in there, and some. I think a couple Howard Piles, and then some Frazettas.
Yeah,
But the
right.
rest of the show was living artists that worked in
Okay,
fantasy.
right. And so Frank Frazetta, N.C. Wyeth, Howard Palm, these are just absolute legends, the greatest illustrators. And then you have present illustrators who are living who had work in there. You have people like Brahm,
Yeah, Brom had a
Thomas
great piece.
Blackshear, Thomas Blackshear,
James Gurney.
and James Gurney, and someone else you might know, Tyler Jacobson. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, that's the way you
Thanks.
got it. That's the way you got to sell it because that's a big deal.
I'm not gonna be. You can sell me like that. I'm not gonna be able to do it.
That's okay. So it's an incredible show, but what was most incredible was Kate's dress, and Thomas
Exactly.
Blackshear took notice of that. It was a hit of the
It was
whole
very
show.
good. It
And
was a
no,
very good
and nobody
dress.
looked at the artwork. So there you go. That's
And
my
why would
story.
they?
And I wasn't there.
Oh yeah, and Ray wasn't there.
I
Yeah.
was there.
I mean, Ray had some other things going on that were pretty
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but what we
But
did is we after the show, which was great. The show was amazing. And it's traveling around now. So, God, I think it's somewhere
yeah,
in Pennsylvania. But if you get a chance, check it out. But what we did afterwards was we drove out to Buffalo to see Ray and Jamie, and we had a great time.
yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun for sure. Okay, so what was it? I saw a comment from the Fat Baron, I think. Lots House Fire, thank you. I have a good feeling about these kids, Ray and Tyler. I think they're going places. One of us is, and I don't know who that is. It's a toss up.
What are places? I mean, what are
Yeah,
they? It's hard
yeah.
to know what
Uh,
a place even is.
but the Fat Baron said, my figure drawing professor in college put it as, quote, all drawing is abstraction. The art is learning what and how to abstract. Yeah, I mean, it's like that's one way of kind of totally looking at it. You know, Bill would always say like drawing representational, which is what we were doing. Like, okay, here's an apple, here's a human head. I'm gonna go draw that thing to make it look like that apple or that human head. It's just that, you know, there is no difference. The only difference between representational and non-representational art is the shapes that are used. So everything else is being considered. So color design, uh, form, the whole nine. And so we he really emphasized that when we took landscape painting with him, because he said it's the closest thing representational art gets to abstract painting, because it really is like very little work you have to do to make something look like a set of trees or a mountain, uh, and take that mountain and then abstract it. I mean, it doesn't take much because it's just a blob, you know, which is pretty cool to think about. But that's
Yeah,
exactly what we were talking about when we were when Nick had asked that question about composing multiple figures. It's we're really thinking these pure design abstract shapes. In many cases, we're just grouping everything together. So like it's no longer a set of figures with like individual hairs. It's a set of shapes, and you're pushing and pulling your values to make the shapes as readable as you want them to be. So
yeah,
uh,
that comes in like self-editing too. You know, are you gonna actually paint that thing, or are you gonna suggest that thing? Are you going to
right,
render it out completely? Do you need, like, in a certain area of the painting, do you need it to be super tightly rendered, or can it be loose and painterly and suggest that that form is? And that gives you the ability to focus things, you know. If everything's pretty loose and soft and then you have one area that's really tight, well, that's where the viewer is going to look. And you can wield that power and, you know, force them to see what you want them to see.
well, I got a question for you. How do you determine that in your work? What's your approach to doing that?
For me, that comes like early on, like when I'm beginning those early thumbnails and sketches. What do I want the focal point to be? And my solution ends up being just that. Like I tend to make things pretty loose and painterly throughout the painting, and then I tighten up in the middle. But yeah, it's a matter of deciding. I don't even know if I have like a definitive answer for that. In that I pick the thing that I want to be the focal point, and you know, if it's a job, if it's like for Magic or something, or D&D, you know, that focal point is dictated in the art description, so you know what it is right away, so you can build your composition around that thing.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of just choose what the focal point's going to be, and then I develop the composition around that.
Yeah, it's a really editing is like one of the craziest things, right? I think like in picture making, it becomes it's really it took me a while to kind of learn how to edit properly. Um, but and what I mean by editing is exactly what Tyler was saying, which is okay, I want to emphasize this. I want to put a lot of information in here so the eye's drawn towards it. And anything that is outside of that, I'm gonna just pump down in emphasis, in detail, or in importance, in contrast. Really, is what it is. Jumps between lights and darks, and because when it's hard when you're learning, you've got this skill. You get from drawing the head. Let's just say like okay, now we know how to draw the head, and you just want to draw everything up to that finish everywhere, no matter how large or small it is. And then you realize like, wait, you actually have to make a image readable, and direct the eye. And so there's a really big difference between like someone like learning the skill of drawing and painting. That's just a start,
Yeah,
and then it's now understanding, how to become, at least for what we do, a storyteller. Like how are you directing the eye? How are you visually communicating the thing, and getting the appropriate emotional response out of your viewer? And that type of stuff is it's a lot of thinking, um, and so you need to have your skills, your faculties, with your mediums in order for you to allow yourself to do that. And it's not to say that you're like, Tyler and I just like learned how to, took a drawing class or a painting class and said, okay, we know everything there is about drawing or painting, and then just focused on storytelling. You're obviously always, it's a constant evolution, so it's like of you improving. So the better better your faculties over, the visual language of drawing and painting, the better your ability to tell stories with it or communicate visually with your viewer. And so it's always this sort of constant back and forth. And that's why like artists say like, uh, I'm just, I'm constantly learning, and I always feel like I'm just getting the handle of it. And it's not just, it's not hyperbole. I mean, I honestly feel like I'm just getting a handle on painting, like just getting the handle, like the start of like, okay, I think I know what I am doing, you know, and because you just always, there's always something else. There's always another peak, another summit every time you climb the mountain.
Yeah, it's never the work's never done, but it's that yeah, it is that juggling act of I remember that from art school. It's like, okay, so I've learned how to paint a still life, or I've learned how to paint a landscape. And then in another class I've learned how to paint figures. Now how do I make those figures exist in the landscape? Or how do I have a figure that's sitting at a table and there's basically a still life on the table? So it's like it's culminating all of those things that you learned and then figuring out how to make it all work as one.
Isn't that like just another level of thinking? Like I remember our first illustration class, and we were so excited because we had this brand new set of skills, and everyone was like amped, and we all went in like head first. And I think it's like kind of one of the only ways to do it is like we were just went way over our
Oh
heads.
yeah, you
And
have to go
realized like,
big.
yeah, it's just like whoa, I don't know anything, you know.
And we did not create good stuff there. Not
No,
at all.
no, we did not.
I remember I did this painting. God, we should find it, put it somewhere. I did this painting as like Caesar, getting stabbed in the by the Senate, and
That
it
was
was
great.
just so bad. No, it was not great. It was so bad.
Yeah, you referenced everything up, and
But yeah, but I didn't know how to. This is, I mean, I guess this goes back to what we were just talking about. But I didn't know how to bring it all together.
yeah.
So I had all these figures, and it was the same thing that someone else had asked in the chat a second ago. But it was the same issue of keeping all the figures together, balanced out, and I couldn't do it. I don't know. I just remember I cringe when I think about that piece when I look back on it.
You cringe. You cringe. We had a piece from that class hanging up in your studio until the day we left, with
Oh yeah.
the piece of tape on the piece saying another Ray Bonilla masterpiece, and it was just sitting in the corner. It was this awful noir painting that I did.
I remember us getting reference for that, dude. It was so great.
Oh God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Our friend Bryce's, wife, great photographer, pho- photographed. Like we spent hours, and it was just like, oh my God,
Yeah, she was probably
it was
annoyed with
just.
us at that point because we're trying to get
Oh
it. We're
well,
like
yeah.
everything was on the line,
I'd
right?
be
We're like
too.
trying to get it
I,
right.
it was hours though. Poor, that poor woman. I hope she knows how appreciative, at least I am, of
The
all that help.
the struggle to get good reference.
Well, the problem was also like, at least for me, the reference, the photos are beautiful. The way I designed the light was awful. So I couldn't use half my reference because the light was too soft. They were beautiful photographs, but not good for, not a strong sense of light. And so, um, light and shadow, so I didn't get readable light and shadow shapes, and I didn't understand why it wasn't working. And it was no fault of the photographer. It was just my fault of like understanding what I needed. And so
Yeah, it's the. I mean, that's another thing you learn is, and then we learned pretty quickly in school was you can like get a photography session all together, but if you don't have a plan for the piece, you're gonna get a whole bunch of useless photographs.
yeah, and also a nice photo doesn't equal good photography reference.
Right.
It's got to
Right.
be usable information to pull off the trick, and so you've got to know how to stage that properly. But then, that comes with just doing it a lot and understanding what makes a good, uh,
Yeah, which can
good
go for, I guess, a
reference.
lot of this is all about repetition.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any chat here that we can, any answers, any questions we can
The,
answer, any
the
answers we can
Kata's,
question.
Kata's sabotaged our chat in an effort to take everything over. So,
Oh, okay. We got a question from Fat Baron. What?
oh,
Oh, I'm reading it wrong. Anyways, it's something about the greatest crime against art. What was the greatest crime against art? I see it now. I see the correction. Ooh,
my first painting for narrative illustration.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to get political here about the art scene in this country, but greatest crime against art.
Uh, that's like saying like what's the greatest travesty in music or greatest crime against music,
Yeah, or
It's
the greatest
yeah.
crime against like movie scores. Like if you were like to
Yeah.
maybe have like changed a movie score or something, like what that
Like,
crime would be.
I have an answer for that.
No, I kind of want to think on this. What's the greatest crime against art? Man,
I don't know, man. Yeah,
well,
it
that's
all
a bit
depends.
loaded, and I don't want to piss people off.
Yeah, it's all the art is just art. It means different things to different people.
Yeah, something that is
It's
good, something that someone thinks is good or great or amazing could be something that someone doesn't like at all or hates. So,
yeah, yeah, and it all depends on just audience too. Like art is not one size fits all, and that's something like you just learn. I learned actually, in school, and there's all these different camps and there's all these different artists that got into art for completely different reasons, and so they bring with them completely different preferences, and they all have reasons why they like what they like. Uh, but I think you could just get a little. I think some of them get a little uh, overzealous with their belief that their art or their type of art is superior to others, and that's where you start getting fights, and because no artist wants to. I think all artists want to be taken seriously and want their work to mean something, not like on a political level or anything like that, but just have a connection with their viewer or with themselves. If they're just doing art for themselves, they wanted to have some sort of value, and not monetary. Doesn't necessarily have to be monetarily, but just intrinsic value in itself. You want to be valued, and everyone does.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I will stop you here in that the question I read wrong is what was your greatest crime against art? And in a way, you did answer it with your
my first, my
yeah.
your greatest crime. All right, Fat Baron. I'm sorry, that was Tyler. That was
That was me.
the
I can
that was
barely read, you guys. Um,
first of my first painting for Bill Mon's narrative painting, of narrative illustration class. I will remain.
oh man, I don't
Uh,
know. I mean, most of the crap I did in art school for sure were crimes. But I don't
I
know. I
was
feel
like,
like I don't want to name any jobs, but I feel like I have done some jobs.
Oh
that were
yeah,
crimes.
yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's a Chris Payne, CF Payne, for those who've never heard of um have never heard of him. Great, like a legendary illustrator. The Time magazine covers um children's books galore. CF, so CF Payne, Payne.
Great artist.
Still very much alive. But Chris had said illustration is art under the circumstances.
Yeah,
That's his
yeah. It's a
it's
great way
so
to put it.
true. Yeah. It's like, hey,
Because it's
you're hired
completely
to
contextual. It's like, well, that
right,
piece looks weird. But it's like, yeah, but you don't know what it was made for. It might have been made for a really weird ad in a book, or it had to adhere to,
right.
multiple, like maybe it has a weird gap in the middle, or the the painting has sort of like a strange area in the center that seems to be missing content. And it's like, well, that was because the book had a gutter, so it was worrying about the gutter of the book. So there's all kinds of weird constraints and context and circumstance.
It's pretty cool though. Yeah, that actually that brings me into like art for concept art for things like movies, video games, or collectible card games like Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and when you see these art of books, they're beautiful because the artists are incredible, but it doesn't really show the majority of the artwork that actually was actually used. There's I had a great conversation with Will Corner,
Yeah.
Coiner, Coiner,
Will's a great guy. We
Coyne.
went to art school with Will. Good
The
dude.
Will. I think it's working. He's working for Sony now.
Oh, is it Tony? Oh, that's
Uh,
great.
yeah, he's working. He did he designed the logo for the Enter the Spider Verse 2. Isn't that cool?
Oh, no kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
Well,
right? That's so awesome.
yeah,
I
and
was like, damn, man.
he's well, if he's at Sony, they've you know video game news. They just acquired Bungie, or bought Bungie, so very exciting.
And we
Anyways,
broke it
go on.
first. You're on Livebrush.
Yeah, this we don't want to become a news show, but sometimes we gotta let you guys know what's going on out there in the world.
Sometimes we try to drop the tooth bombs. Oh God. So Will was saying like, you know, he's a concept artist, and so Will was saying like, your artworks. There's a difference between doing like artwork and artwork that serves a purpose, a specific purpose. And concept art is that it serves a specific purpose. You have to understand its role. So it's a what means of getting whether it's like a character design for so a modeler can take it and then model it in 3D. It's you have to or an environment design or character design for a costume artist. Like these are all different things, and they're not. Some of them are fast. A lot of it is fast. I mean, Tyler, you've done concept art. I mean, it's about the idea, really.
Yeah,
And they're super skilled artists, and you have to communicate that idea clearly and quickly. But it's not like not everything is the keyframe, fully painted, fully rendered illustration stuff that you see in the art of books.
yeah,
Um,
and it's almost rarely that you're trying to convey that mood, and it has to be done pretty quickly. There's also, like Ray was saying, that there's also this purpose. The purpose ends up being what you can't become attached to the piece that you created because it's serving a bigger picture. It's there to achieve a movie or a video game. It's not there to be like this piece that you really like hold on to and care for. It needs to be changeable. It needs to be altered so that it can exist for the thing you're working on. Um, so the term I've got from a friend of mine who's been a long time concept artist is you have to be able to kill your darlings. It's a terrible sounding term, but that is things that you really care about. that you've made in visual development, you have to be willing to let those things die or not be used or be altered significantly in order to serve the bigger picture that you're working on.
Yeah, so you can't be precious.
Can't be precious. And it sucks because you want to be precious. You know, when you're an artist, you work on something, you care about it. It's tough to not be precious. I can speak from experience. I've worked on a lot of magic concepts, and a lot of them have been not used, never used, will never be seen, because they're owned by the company and they can't be seen. But there was something that I thought was really cool at the time and was going to be really great. But it's I just had to, you have to let it go. Keep moving forward.
Tyler's usually guilty of making all the main characters look strikingly like him.
Yeah, which those are the ones you guys aren't going to see because they don't like that.
Tyler, I asked you for this character's a tree.
Yeah. I'm doing self-portrait over here.
Goodness me, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a whole. Oh, man, it's so different. Everything is. It's. That's the thing about art. It's like it depends on what you want to do with it, and you know, uh, and not every, it's not one size fits all. Like I wouldn't be able to show up with my, you know, I don't know, my fine art paintings, and then still lifes and landscapes, and get character design work from Marvel Studios or something like that. It's like, okay, I know how to do this. Give me Thor. Give me the next Thor movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I got it.
I got it. Yeah, it's a whole range of things, and it's so vice versa. It's really interesting. I think it's the best time in the history of art in the history of art in general to be an artist, because you could just think about how much stuff you can do.
Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, remember when we were in school, there was so many books out there that were like illustrations dead, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
they're always wrong. It's never correct.
Well, they
all
were
they're talking
right.
about is, well, go ahead.
Well, they're right. I have an issue with just interrupting people. You go ahead.
No, but I think I know what you're about to say, but go for it.
I said, but they're right in the fact that their view of illustration, which is a fixed view of what illustration is, was dead, because illustration is constantly evolving. So it doesn't mean there's no fixed idea of what illustration is, because its purpose, what people want use narrative artwork for, is constantly changing. It changes with society's needs. So
yeah, 100%.
Anyway.
It's always just and I forget the books. I don't even want to name them, but to say that it is dead is just to say that it's changed, and that's all they're really talking about.
Right.
Because it's not, whatever it is, it's never dead. There's always new avenues to work on things.
Yeah. And actually, Lord Adorable says, question for both. When making an image or designing a character, which comes first, the visuals or the storytelling? Actually, Tyler, you've done so much character design stuff. I want you to take this, and then I can, chime in with some edit, my poster work and whatnot.
So I would say that most of the time it is driven by storytelling, because you're usually serving a story of some kind. So almost all the time it's storytelling, but the conversations we have in visual development are almost always about, how do we depict this thing? And then once we've depicted it, or we've got at least a starting point to depict the thing, the character, the story, the environment, the world, the conversations we often have after that is, cool is king is usually the phrase that we use. So there may be a story in the works, and usually when you're starting visual development, the story hasn't been completely solved yet. So now, while we're at this point now where we're going to be creating visuals, if you make something that is incredibly cool, but it doesn't adhere exactly to the story, you should side with that thing that's cool. And so cool gets to be king there. Whatever the story was, we're now going to sacrifice that, or we're going to rewrite that in order to fit the cool thing that we just made. So there's a lot of that back and forth. And I really enjoy that on the visual development stuff I've done for Magic or D&D. That back and forth with the writers that are there. Oftentimes it's been a couple friends of mine, Ari and Adam, who were writers for both those brands for a long time. And we get to play with those things back and forth, and they're really good at doing that and bouncing ideas back and forth. So that, you know, we'll come up with a visual that they might be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. That makes me want to change this aspect of the story. So there's a lot of that going on, that back and forth. So just try and think of that as you go. Like, even if you're working in visual development, or you're trying to make a portfolio full of visual development work, think about cool is king. Go with the coolest looking ideas that you can come up with, and that's the stuff that's going to get your work out there. So
Yeah,
that
that's
was my
great.
answer to that question.
No, yeah, and it's really specific to, I think, the role of what visual development is like versus, you know, if you're doing a card, there's a fixed image of what the character looks like.
Right. In that case, the
Or
visual development's already been done,
right, so
and
then
you
the
have to
story
adhere to
takes
it.
over.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, it's never a fixed answer. It depends on what the application is. And so, like, I know when I've done like editorial illustrations or theater posters, the story, it's about the story. So the storytelling has to come first, because it's not like I can say like, you know, I don't like these characters. Let's replace them with ducks.
Exactly. Yeah.
That'll make a better picture, you know. Um,
And that,
but that's
I
just
mean,
kind
the
of
term that I often hear for that is painting to a world guide, or painting on model,
right.
which you're going to have to do if you're trying to become illustrators out there. You're going to have to do a lot.
I love your description. When you had talked at a university I teach at, Tyler was gracious enough to come and do a visiting artist talk a couple of years ago. It's been a while, man.
Yeah,
And
I know.
so
It's great.
I remember you were saying, somebody had asked a student like, "What if you had this great idea for a character, but it went against the character, uh, you know, design or something that was against the character design, so it was a little off, you know, and a new idea that's off kilter." And you had said like, I would. You said something to the extent, it was like, I would keep that idea for yourself, because if you're, for instance, drawing Thor for Marvel, they don't care what your crazy idea for Thor is. They want it drawn to look like Thor, the way they
100%.
have.
Yeah.
It's on brand. You can't just change their brand, because their brand has got billions of dollars behind it, and they want to make more of that money, and they want it to be recognizable, so that's associated with that. You know that, and it's. I remember it's like people were taken aback, thinking like, "You mean they won't, you know, love my incredible idea that's so off base, you know?" And it's just like, well, you know, in that case, no, you know, it's you got to work. It depends on where you're at and on the total pole for that, you know. And I think when you were saying about the visual development part, where the art is informing the story and the story is informing the art, that sort of really nice, free, open process, part of the development process, I think that's when it's kind of things are at its most malleable, right? I mean, because I would imagine that eventually everyone is settled on the story, and then you can focus on specific things,
Yeah, totally.
specific elements of that story.
Yeah, that's totally true. It's yeah, sometimes you don't get it. You don't get to do that. You don't get to have your cool thing. You have to adhere to the product you agreed to work on. And
Which is cool.
it's totally cool, right? It's like, that's great. You're working on, especially if you're working on Thor, that's fantastic. I mean, but yeah, work on, save those ideas for something else maybe.
And also, like, I think the thing I like about illustration in general is that there are those restrictions. Is I really it 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 causes me to solve problems. It forces me to solve problems creatively. Like when I have something I ran into all the time in magazine illustration was like, okay, this is a play, or like a theater poster stuff. Okay, this is a play where not much stuff happens, or like all these things happen, and you gotta take it and represent it in one image, and you've got to fit these characters in because they're all important. What do you do?
Yeah.
And so, and it's the ideation process behind that. I think is thrilling for me. I really enjoy that because it goes from I always just start a project thinking there's no way I'm going to be able to pull this off. That's it. This is the end. You know, this is mark the day. This is the day my career ends because people are going to find out that I just don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so but then you start the process, and so I really I I really enjoy that about illustration. But I could see where it can be frustrating too because you want, especially if your ideas are, if it's about ideas and everyone's pitching ideas and you have these ideas but they aren't being as the idea that you thought was the best direction for it didn't end up being that, and that's where the compromise comes in, which that's happened to me all the time, even in my end of illustration where they asked for a change and they're paying the bills, so you
Oh
change
yeah.
it.
You got to do the change. The answer is yes.
Yeah,
That's always first
sure,
answer is
yeah,
yes. Yeah, but I mean, I've totally, I think that's that's the fun thing about illustration to me is that problem solving thing, right? The like you said, like you got all these different figures. How do I make them fit? They have to be here. How do I make them fit? That's the problem solving fun that I enjoy.
yeah,
And it's, I mean, that's what for me, that's what illustration's all about, right? Like, how do you figure out how to make this painting fit the thing that's needed? And I
right,
enjoy that quite a bit. Making an illustration fit onto a cover of a book and have it still look cool and not look like it was specifically made for the cover of a book, or
right,
when it I've had this a few times with magic where the piece really really worked well with the card art, not the card art but the card frame design. That's super fun, satisfying stuff when you can make it all look like it was one intended thing. I got
well I,
one. We got a follow up question on the.
yeah, I was just gonna ask
Yeah.
that.
So how do you personally feel about the sentiment of Cool as King? I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I constantly bring it up because I don't know. It's like I don't want to be a slave to whatever had been essentially, especially when it comes to like IPs, intellectual property. It's if it hasn't been built yet, it's hard to be like a slave to the thing that was the story element that was thought up. It's better to find a cool visual and let that win than to be like a stickler for a canon that hasn't even been established yet. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. I love Cool as King, and it often comes up when I'm working on concept pushes, and it becomes the rule essentially.
Now, where'd you come across that? Is that something you just sort of
It's just come up a
naturally, or
lot in discussions that we've had while working on visual development stuff. So, I probably got it mostly from my friend Richard Witters, who had worked on D&D for a really long time, as well as another friend of mine, Jeremy Jarvis, who's worked on Magic for ages. So those guys are both big advocates of that as art directors and artists themselves. They want the brands that they worked on to have the coolest looking stuff possible. So it when cool ideas come up, if they're better than the initial writing, we tend to go with the cool visual over whatever the written idea was. And it's not always. Sometimes we have to adhere to certain things. It's just a good rule to go by for visual development.
Well, there's this great video on actually that Magic had published on the how they sort of put together, built the world of the new set that's coming out, Kamigawa, or it's come out already, right?
It hasn't been released yet, but they're in like previews now. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting to see all of the things, all of the just the moving pieces that are part of that, and so it's and Tyler, you were part of that push, right? Because I know you had posted.
Yeah, I
Uh,
haven't. I'm gonna post some more concept art for that, but yeah, I was on it, and it was a challenging one because there's a lot of sort of strange moving targets that we have to adhere to. There's for Magic, there's the game mechanic, but there's also we wanted to be really respectful and celebratory of Japanese culture in this particular set. So we tried really hard to get advisors in, people that understood, knew a lot of stuff about Japanese culture. We even have a bunch of people on staff at Wizards who are Japanese, who are intimate with the culture and the things that Japanese culture really cares about. We wanted to celebrate that stuff and not just make it a set that was, seen through Western eyes. So we had a
yeah,
lot of consultants on there, and I thought we did a pretty good job. It's a hard thing to nail, but to make it fit into the box that is Magic, as well as celebrate Japanese culture, I thought we did a great job.
yeah. I mean, I think from what I've seen in the previews that they've shown, it's I mean, the set and what people have posted on on social media, um, the set's beautiful. So I think you guys nailed it.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it came out great.
Yeah,
I was really happy
yeah,
with it.
yeah.
And it's a set that it's a for folks not familiar with Kamigawa or Magic. It was a set that Magic had put out 15 years ago, and they finally decided to do a return to it. And the original set was actually fantasy feudal Japan, and this one we sent like 5,000 years or something into the future. So it was really techie, um, Blade Runner kind of cyberpunk Japan with all the same sort of strange fantasy creatures that Magic has.
The Neon Dynasty.
The Neon Dynasty, yeah. I think the names always change, but we like initially started with Neo Kamigawa, which is what we were going to call it. Neo is in new, old Latin, but yeah, I don't know. Things change in development.
Or Tyler. That was your first pitch, right? Just
Well,
call it
yeah,
Tyler.
and I was like, "Cool's king here. Let's call him my name," but they didn't go very far.
Cool as cake, guys.
What I remember what I said? Remember what I said about it? All right, fine.
What's your name? Justin? It's not Tyler. So
Yeah, that's not gonna work.
I think we can all table that one. Oh goodness. So let's see what the stream is up to here.
Yeah, would you guys? I haven't seen a question in a while, so we've clearly answered everything.
Dude, your piece is looking awesome, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I did a little top knotty kind of like braid thing going on. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. The stream's catching up here. Let's see.
Doing subtools.
Oh yeah, totally, man.
Oh yeah, I haven't done the tooth yet. I think
Yeah,
I
where's
can
the
do it as a
tooth?
subtool and it can stay. It can stay not connected to the model, and I can keep it off center. We're getting the tooth.
That looks great.
Thanks, man. Sometimes I change the material so I can get a better look at it. So I like this red clay material as well. Kind of lets you see different facets. Like chrome, ooh.
turned the stream off.
Yeah, he's done.
I didn't want to break the thing.
He's
but
over it. He sounded good when you
I
turned
think
it
it's.
on.
I did.
Yeah, it sounded fine.
We'll turn it back on then. What's the worst that could happen?
Get all choppy.
Yeah. Let's see.
What are you looking at? Me?
I think I'm looking at you. For a second, my mouse cursor was in the stream.
Thanks a lot, Sephorius, about the Kamigawa set. Yeah, it was. I was skeptical too at the beginning when I first came in for the concept push. I was like, "Ooh, this is a really hard sci-fi. It's not very magic." But it in the end, it worked out and resonated really well with the rest of Magic.
I mean, I'm a complete outsider to that, to the lore, for sure. But I was just really impressed with how, I mean, that's a risk taking a property like that, like it's called a plane, right?
Yeah, because Magic is every time they do a new set tends to be a new plane or a revisiting of another plane. So it's this whole idea of like the multiverse. There's all kinds of universes going on.
Yeah, and so it's one that it's a revisit, but it's also like we're going in the future.
Yeah, usually we do return tos, which we've done a lot of return tos in Magic, where we just go back to the same setting and the same time period most of the time. Very, very similar. So this is pretty fun. Like, I mean, we returned to Dominaria a few years ago, and I worked heavily on that set as the lead concept artist, and we were returning to it at a different time period. So it was a little bit of that, which I think probably was the inspiration to do that with Kamigawa as well, return to a very different time period.
Oh, cool. Was that like one of the first planes, Dominaria?
Yeah, Dominaria was like the original Magic plane.
Okay. Okay.
Before they had the multiverse.
Oh, so it was okay. Wow. No stress, right?
No stress. Yeah, that was
pressure.
interesting. That was a lot of. It was fun though, because on that particular set, it was like me, Mark, and Kelly Diggs. Mark Winters was the lead art director, and we would just sit in a room and look at all the old cards, and think about ways where we could bring that imagery forward and reinvent it to fit the more acceptable aesthetic that we now have. Because the art style has changed significantly, so we were working hard to update the visuals so that they were appropriate for what people expected in Magic art. Most diplomatic way I could say it, I guess.
Well, I mean, like, what is it? So, okay, so what is it like working on, a property that has so many fans, and working on it from an angle of like, okay, you're dictating now what the visual makeup, what the style guide's going to be for this specific plane or something like or for this specific set.
I mean, there's a responsibility, a lot of responsibility of doing it justice, because it's such a lot of these things are really, I mean, I guess that kind of, this can go for like a lot of brands, like Star Wars right now is being so heavily touched by artists, and there's that legacy that you have to maintain. So I don't know, it feels exciting but also a little scary, because there's so much riding on whatever the property is.
Yeah, it's like that pressure, like of like, there's all this great stuff, but if the fans don't respond well, if the response is not good, then they'll never go back down that road again.
Oh, I mean, they probably will, but with the internet these days, they're just going to complain pretty heavily. But
Yeah.
I don't know. There's another part of me is like, well, we made the thing that we really wanted to make. So there's a, don't listen to don't read the comments kind of scenario. I'm sure that people at Wizards of the Coast don't feel that way. They're very interested in the comments, but because this is a brand and they need to make money and all that stuff. But for me, there's a lot of just like, we made the thing we wanted to make, and I'm fine with that. We don't need to have a big discussion about it, about how people didn't get the exact thing that they wanted, or the exact thing that was in their head. There, look at that. We got a tooth. Happy?
Wait, talking about being pushed around and manipulated by comments, by your fans.
Getting art directed over here.
You just pointed out you just got pushed around.
But I gotta say, cool is king. And there we go. See, cool is king, and it's a very cool thing to do. I think it'll be neat to maybe make this tooth bigger at some point when I start making this face more asymmetrical. But I don't know. Maybe we can get into that soon. I don't want to start. I got to do what someone in the chat said to save it out so that I don't ruin what I'm about to ruin.
So what's your end goal with this sculpture here?
I would just like to get it up maybe to a point where I can use it as reference and do a painting from it. But I don't know, sometimes there's sculptures for sculpture's sake, and that I want to make more. Okay, good. You can't see the save window. I was worried about opening a save window and revealing stuff that I have under NDA.
Yeah, opening up the NDA vaults.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to do more sculpture, and if it's just a matter of like I made a sculpture and that's it, cool. But it would be fun to like. I think my neighbor has a 3D printer. I could like ask him to help me print stuff. I don't know. I like this tooth. That's good. I might put a few more in there. Maybe we can duplicate this and move it around.
He likes the tooth. When kicking and screaming about the tooth, and it's not tooth.
Tooth. Remember the tooth.
That's what it says in the style guide.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. This is good. He's going to have a few.
Well, at least you'll have like an orc reference.
Oh, yeah. You always need orcs.
Yeah. See, that's the thing about 3D I want to really get into is like, structures and arranging characters exactly the way I want it.
This is the one thing I can kind of do in Zbrush now is subtools. So I can like his hair and eyes and teeth are all on subtools now. So they're like separate entities.
And you can isolate them and just work on that thing.
Yeah, so I can just sculpt on the face now that I have everything else in place. So now, like, especially, like if I were to put a big tusk in, then I could go in and start sculpting the lip around it, so it's actually adhering to the topography of that tooth. Oh, that's pretty good. The other thing I want to try and learn, which I'm not very good at, and maybe people in the chat know or whatever, but is like changing these materials. So if I could make the eyes like a really shiny red orb, that'd be pretty cool.
I can tell you how to do it in Nomad. That's about it.
There we go. There's got to be a way.
There's got to be a way. It's really
more importantly, Dr. Mundo, who's going to name this orc? I think I saw Orky McOrkface earlier, which is pretty good.
Or tooth.
Yeah, toofs. I think now that I looked at him directly on the side,
with extra F's.
I think that
Rat Tooth. Kate Wells just we locked down the name Rat Tooth.
Oh, Rat Tooth's the name. Perfect.
All right, F in the chat if you like. If you think Kate just should name all things from now on.
Okay, I'm gonna save this.
Get tired. Yep. I'm seeing a sea of Fs.
Oh my gosh.
Toothy the York.
I'm loving it, folks. Keep coming.
Toothy.
Yeah, because then if
Toothy
I could
York.
change the color of these teeth, that'd be awesome.
Rat tooth.
I'll have to do some off the stream. I'll have to do some research. I think I knew how to do this at one point. That's the problem when I learn how to do something in ZBrush. I'll do it for like a day and then I'll forget how to do it again.
This is how I'm like how I am with Blender. It's like I knew how to model something somewhat, and then I stopped doing. I did it for a project, and then like weeks later, I'm working on other things, and I come back to it. And I'm like, no idea how to even open it. Like, which button do you press?
Okay, so I'm gonna try something here. I just saved it, so if I ruin it, actually let me save it one more time. I'll just do 100 different saves so that I have 10 different versions. I made a new layer, and I'm gonna try and put some like scars on them asymmetrically. Oh man, you come a long way over there.
I'm working in 2 dimensions, man. I only got 2 Ds, man. You have an entire third one.
I've got ZDs.
The ZDs. I told you I'm trying to lay this in so I could get onto the color here.
All right, so hold on. Oh, okay, so it acts as animation. Ah, cool.
With the layer?
Yeah, when I use the layer, I can kind of scroll in between the two.
Yeah.
It acts as basically an animation.
Yeah, Nomad does that. Oh, interesting. Okay. Guess that's where it gets it from.
I don't know if I like that as a thing, but whatever. I think I can turn them off, which is good.
I think this goes back to like workflows where a lot of the 3D workflow is kind of foreign to me. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But you know what we should maybe have on besides the, like the football field length of long list of incredible artists that we could have on. We should ask. I would love to pick Chase Stone's.
Yeah, man.
Brain.
I would too. And Adrian Myshak would be great.
Where's Adrian from?
He's here. He's from here, actually.
So what does he work? What is Adrian?
So Adrian worked on Bungie for a long time. I think he said last time I was chatting with him, he said he listened to us here. So if you're listening now, Adrian, we're talking about you. He worked for Bungie for quite a long time on Destiny. He did a lot of the cool vehicles and weapon designs.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's this little game.
So you mean he worked for Sony? No.
Yeah, no, he probably dodged that working for Sony. But so yeah, he worked on Destiny for a long time. Cool, super cool stuff. Okay, I don't know what I've done here. Okay, can I turn these on and off?
That I remember your friend on that. Did everything in Blender, right?
He works heavily in Blender. I don't know if he started there, but he works heavily in Blender now.
And Chase Stone is well known for his magic work, but I mean he does National Geographic and
a ton of stuff. Man, I love Chase's stuff because he does, I don't know what you even call it, but he just brings he's really good at bringing, I guess he's really good at making fantasy look hyper realistic. and
Right.
he's a great sculptor too, and he does most of his stuff. He does most of his sculpting in ZBrush and then brings it into other programs like Moto. I imagine he's in Blender now these days, but it's all amazing um, work. So check out Chase Stone's work if you get a chance. It'd be cool to have him on here.
So one he did, it was a magic card for. It looked like an evil, like a villain. It was like a red, like a devil.
Oh yeah, it was he's a
Oh my god, man.
planeswalker. Yeah, and he's like
Yeah,
he's lit from below.
yeah. I was like,
Yeah, that piece is
what?
killer. Yeah, check him out, folks. We can. I'm sure someone can find his website and throw it in the chat. But Chase Stone, very good. All right, I had some asymmetry. He's got some like scars on himself now.
There you go.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see Chase's progress. I mean, his process too. He's sent me some of his sculpts here and there, but how he gets everything lit and everything, I don't know. And I know he says it takes him a long time.
What animals he sacrifices in order
Yeah,
to
exactly.
conjure up such dark magic. Yeah, I love his work, man. It was. Now, how'd you meet Chase? Was it because you shared a same agent for a while, or?
We do have. I think we still have the same agent, but there was the first time I met him, he didn't have my agent. He was on a magic push, and it was my first push. So his first push, my first push. We didn't know what we were doing, but that was actually when I got to see him paint. He barely used any 3D, I think, on that. He just only painted, and he has
Jesus.
such a great way of. It's very like value based, super heavy, like value transitions, and he said it all came from working in pencil for the longest time. So he had trained his brain to really see in values and control values in black and white, kind of like what you're doing right now, controlling all this in just value wise. Not you're not
Yeah,
dealing
but
with color
Chase
right now.
actually Chase actually knows what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know what you're doing over there, Ray. I just found a picture of Ray when he won his Society of Illustrators award. The guy who doesn't know what he's doing when he won his Society of Illustrators award 9 years ago. I
Sure
found it in
needed
my photos. I sent it to him.
a wrinkly ass shirt and
You look
boy,
good, man. You look good. You had a beer in your hand. You're having a good time.
it's a glass of red wine. I don't know why. I didn't want to get bloated because with beer. That was a good night. That was a good night. That was cool. I was glad that you were there.
Oh man, I
That
had a
was a lot of fun.
blast.
My favorite is when we had a blast. We had a little. That was a great night. I think one of my favorite nights was when we both went to the Society of Illustrators Los Angeles because I was lucky enough to win a couple of awards, and then Tyler won Best in Show, and I think it was like they didn't know whether or not you had won Best in Show yet, like they didn't announce it,
Oh yeah,
and
sorry.
I said something. I was like, well, we were talking on Skype like we usually did. This is live. It was Livebrush before Livebrush,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was like, dude, if you win Best in Show, we are going. I'm flying to LA. You're flying down. We're gonna do this. And like I think the next day they announced that you had Best in Show. I'm like, well, guess I'm going to LA.
Love
And
home.
it was awesome. It was awesome. Met Bill Perkins there. Oh, it was
That
great.
was
Saw Sid
wild,
Mead.
man. That's
Yeah.
right. Sid Mead came in with he had like a yellow suit on.
I thought it was all white.
Was it all white? I couldn't remember. The
And he
lighting was
sat down
weird.
on a couch and he had it could have been all yellow actually. I don't know.
I
It was like
don't remember.
maybe he sat down with glasses on and it was dark outside. What a baller.
Did whatever he wanted. Blade
Did
Runner.
whatever he wanted and he left. Blade Runner. Yeah. And I should have went up and said hello.
Yeah,
And
I don't. You usually do that. You usually run right in and say hello.
I know. And I had asked you if you wanted to go, and you were like, "No, I'm really nervous, and I don't." And I was like, "You know what?" And as soon as you said that, I'm like, "Oh, I'm really nervous. What if she say something dumb to Sid Mead?" And I was like, "I can't live that down."
Oh my
But
God.
the dumb thing was not saying hi to Sid Mead because he's no longer with us.
I know. Yeah. We
Yeah,
wasted our opportunity there.
yeah. Learn from our failures. If you see Sid Mead, well, if you see Sid Mead sitting down, it is a ghost, and turns out that Sid Mead's a necromancer. So
Yeah. He's back. He's
he's
back to give
back,
us more
and
amazing
he's
shit.
brought a couple of his friends with him.
Yeah, but future, you see an amazing artist that you love, go talk to him, man.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be like, hey, really appreciate your work. I'm a fan. And that's it. Boom.
Yeah,
Done.
that's all you gotta say. You don't have to like speak
You don't have to
Shakespeare
have
to
a
him.
yeah, you don't have a prepared speech or anything. Just say, really appreciate your work, blah blah blah.
And
That's it. Done.
they probably just appreciate that. That they love it, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
That's the way how I first talked to Manchus, Greg Manchus.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I saw him at a show and I moseyed up next to him. It was a Ted and Betsy Lewin shows. The two incredible illustrators. Actually, they wrote and illustrated that book I was telling you about, Gorilla Walk. I got to show you that book. And so they there was this crazy piece. It was probably like Machu
I don't know
Picchu
if you
or
told
something
me
like that.
about this piece, this book.
Yeah, it's Gorilla Walk. It's like it was about like going into Africa and seeing gorillas in the wild, that
Oh,
were
cool.
domesticated. Like, yeah, and so and like that whole process and whatnot. Um, Kay knows what I'm talking about, but you obviously weren't listening when I was telling my whole story about that, so that's okay.
I think I vaguely remember this.
F in the chat if you just feel like this is old Tyler uh, back again. Um, so go up to Greg Manchess, Manchess. If you've never heard of it, oh, we got a bunch of. See, Kate
Oh
said that.
man,
Almost said Tyler
great.
listening in the chat.
Everyone's against me in the
Tyler
chat again.
Tyler Vale Art off the top rope with the F. Love it. Um,
Thanks everyone. I appreciate the support.
and so I go up to Manchus. I see him watching this. He like because he was mobbed there. Everyone was a fan of his. And so he was by himself for like a split second, looking at a piece of artwork in the corner. Actually, I'll tell you exactly where the Society of Illustrators, right where the podium where they were announcing the awards.
Yeah, okay.
They had pieces of artwork up there, so right there. And I went up on the little stage thing. There was no podium really there, and it was just a show. And I came up to, I was like, just stood right next to him, and I was like, we nodded heads, and he was cool. And I was like, yeah, man, I love the composition on this. I didn't know what else to say. I was so nervous. And Greg is so cool. He was like, he turned to me and he goes, yeah, man, no one talks about composition anymore.
That's what he said.
And, yeah. And then he was like, hi, I'm Greg. And I was like, Mr. Manchus, I'm a huge fan of your work. Coolest person ever.
And then, you know what? No, but it pays off because now if we run into Greg anywhere, he remembers us.
Yeah, well, you can't not remember us,
Yeah, it's really hard, actually.
Yeah. Those are the two obnoxious
the scenes
guys.
that we cause.
Yeah. Oh my God. Last time we hung out with Greg, we spent like a half an hour telling him going through the list of actors that he reminds us of.
That's right. He was telling, I mean, I guess we can tell stories about Greg all day long, but
because Greg ain't coming on.
He's not coming on here. He was just, I don't know, at the Norm Rockwell thing, he was telling us all about working on the mission badges for SpaceX and how
right.
like astronauts called him from space and he didn't answer
Oh.
because he didn't recognize the number.
I was like,
Sorry,
ASCII
Greg. Sorry to tell
characters.
your stories if you're out there, but that's the only story I'll tell that you told. But that was pretty funny. That was a
Oh,
pretty funny story.
that's good stuff. Can you imagine that?
I can't even
Look at your
imagine.
friends.
I can't. I'm
Just
such a huge space nut. I can't even imagine working on a mission badge. I will tell you now that I shamelessly at the Rockwell Museum with Greg. I was like, Greg, if you're too busy to do one of these, I'll do one. You know, I'm hustling. I was
Elon,
hustling.
hey, yeah. Well, Elon, Elon watches the stream.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
loves
hopefully he's directly in charge of what the mission badges are.
I feel like if he wanted to, he could be. Yeah, Dr. Mondo says, hello, yes, this is space. Yeah, that's awesome.
Hello. Space here.
Space here.
Man.
He looked at his phone, it's just a bunch of emoji and like, can you imagine that? And crazy like ASCII characters, or ASIC characters.
Oh, it looks like someone in the chat. Cyphorius, you made it to the Rockwell show. That's great. It was super fun.
Oh, that's awesome. It was epic.
I hope
It looked
so.
epic.
The whole aspect of it traveling, I'm also excited for because I had an extra piece in the show that they didn't hang in the Rockwell Museum, and I was like, oh man, this is one of my favorite pieces, and I was kind of bummed that it didn't hang with all the other ones, but that will be in the traveling show because they have to swap it out. They used my red dragon as like a sticker on the wall above the other red dragon images that were done for D&D, and then they just cut the other piece that I had and just didn't hang it because of that. So hopefully this means and Jesse, the curator, told me that it will be in the traveling show, so that piece should be traveling around, which I'm excited about.
That's awesome. I love how like you swept under the carpet. There's like, well, I had a red dragon piece and it was on the wall, so that's why they didn't show the other piece.
Well, yeah, no, I didn't want to come off as greedy. I mean, I was excited just to have a piece in the show.
I would have pulled out the show entirely, and I would have taken the Thomas Black shirt with you.
Yeah,
as collateral. That'd be, oh god.
All right,
that's the thing about
I've reached
this,
like a point of no return on this piece, I think.
Oh, let me see. I gotta. Oh yeah.
Well, I did some asymmetrical stuff, but then now I just started sculpting on the main geometry, and I don't know how to switch back. I guess I could make another layer and switch back. This is great. This is great material. Me fumbling through.
I love it. Now,
like,
how do I?
Oh, cool.
That right there is 3D for me. It's like, oh, this is great. If I could do it over again, I would do it way different. How do I get back to that?
Yeah.
You ever do something in 3D and mess up on it just a little bit, and then figure out a way how to kind of flub it so you don't see the mess up, but then later on you realize that the thing that you messed up on is always kind of there. It's like a piece of geometry that's a little off, but you can kind of hide it, but nothing, like you light it and it's all messed up and stuff, and then when you want to do anything extra on it, it just goes nuts. Oh god.
Yeah, you can't get rid of it, or it's like some weird spike in the geometry. And I don't know enough about how to fix it. I'm sure there's some way to fix it, but I don't have a clue.
Well, I just got to learn about like proper topology and stuff. It is a lot of like technical stuff you got to worry about. And I'm like, man, that's why I got to just sit down.
Yeah, it's just it's like
get the basics in.
Yeah, just like dig in and really learn it. But my issue is, I don't know, like I can remember most of the stuff, like the menus I need to go into in Photoshop, but they're so different in ZBrush and Blender and other 3D programs that I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like that's the biggest hurdle for me. If I can just remember where everything is.
Well, that's half the battle, right? And it's like, I want to do this.
You know
Okay, how
what?
do I do that?
Knowing is half the battle.
Oh wow,
G.I. Joe,
that's what
everybody.
I'm talking about. Copyright. Copyright
Copyright
Hasbro
Hasbro
or
Corporation.
Mattel? Was it? No, Hasbro,
Yeah,
right?
it's Hasbro. Yeah. I thought it was He-Man was Mattel, right?
Oh yes. Jeez, you would think I would know this, man.
Guess I
This
gotta
is like
watch those Toys Who Made Us again.
man. Yeah, yeah, that's dating us, but you know.
We grew up in the 80s, everybody. Oh, this is good. This is fun. Oh, we only got a couple minutes left actually, so I guess we
Oh,
gotta
okay.
begin our sign off.
Okay. We were, I think, unfairly criticized last time because of our sign off chops.
It was good.
Uh,
We did a good job.
by an unnamed person, that
Who has been banned from our
an,
chat, banned
an
from our
unnamed Kate,
Discord audio.
an, an unnamed Kate, will not be named. Uh, yeah. So what are you gonna do next? We got
Um,
4 minutes left, so I mean,
I think
we'll wrap it up.
oh, my clock. I only got two. Anyways, doesn't matter. Um, I think what I'll do is I might like because I saved right before I did all this scarring and stuff. I might go back to that one, and I'll probably do a little research as to how I can figure out these layers a little bit more. But I don't know. I think before I get into the asymmetry, I want to do more texturing and stuff on this guy, and maybe build out the shoulders so it's more of like a shoulder bust.
I think that's
So
great.
yeah, I think I just need to. I'll probably back up a step.
All right, right on. I
What
am.
about you, man?
I think I'm gonna. I'm putting in my final glaze here for specific areas here. There's some areas that I need to resolve, but it's a study, so I can kind of resolve both of them with just large swaths of color. I don't really need to have the drawing too tight. It's only an 8 by 10 image, but
Oh man, that's
I
looking
think
great.
this is
And do you? I've done this with the acrylic stuff I've done, but do you ever glaze with your airbrush?
yes all the time. I just haven't. I'm just too lazy. I don't have it with me, so
Yeah. I
I
guess it wouldn't be the airbrush sound wouldn't be too great on the stream.
yeah. I mean, we can noise cancel out and whatnot, but yeah, I've done it before, but that was my previous setup. But yeah, so I'm gonna maybe bust out the
Oh, we had a network
possibly
error.
bust out. Oh,
Yeah. I don't know if we're still. Are we still in their chat? Are we still going? Oh, we're good. We're good. Never mind. Just as
totally
we
good.
sign off, it's like boom, brow. But we're good. We're good. Keep going.
Looks
Keep
good.
going, man.
Okay, cool. What was I gonna say? Funny how they had a network error when you
Yeah. Well, I was pressing.
when it went.
I was trying to do that. Remember Swordfish when he's like hacking? And he's like Hugh Jackman standing in that like
Big,
fight
uh,
pose. He's got
oh
sweatbands
man,
on or something.
I think this is the Kate that this is what the Kate who shall not be named was maybe talking about.
Yeah, we're
This is,
trying to sign off here, but now
so
we're talking
I'm
about
gonna try.
movies.
I'm gonna try and bring this to color. Maybe bust out the oils, um, and then you'll see that process. And you know, if anyone's interested, I'll just show you how I kind of go over this with color. So it should be a lot of fun.
Oh, it's gonna be great.
But yeah, so I've been well. Thank you everyone for joining us today for this second episode of the season, third season. And my name is I've been Ray Bonilla. You can find me at raymondbonilla.com. On Instagram, I'm Ray Bonilla Painter. If you haven't done so already, please also follow Livebrush. We're on Instagram. We do a lot of posts.
Ray does all of
artists,
that. He does a great job.
and you know, well, I so yeah, I'll go ahead and just take all of it. But I'm trying
Just
to wrap
take
this
the
up really
credit.
quickly. So yeah,
Just
and
take
so
the
who
credit
have you
quickly.
been? Yeah, who have you been, producer?
I've been Tyler Jacobson. You can find me at Tyler Jacobson Art or tylerjacobsonart.com. And that's really it. That's really it. That's all I have to say.
Are you gonna keep sculpting on this thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep working on this next week. I think I want to bring this to something cool, but it's gonna require me to do some research, and I don't want to do that on the stream. And Kay wants us to wrap it up. All right, folks.
Okay.
Thanks so much for coming in. Everyone, thanks for watching. Ray, thanks for joining me again. It's
Thank
always
you.
a pleasure,
Thank
sir.
you, everyone. Likewise. All right, folks. We'll see you next week.
Have a great time. Have a great weekend.